Yeah, so I'm Max, and today we're going to be kind of delving into what the heck no code is, some use cases, some case studies, and how you yourself can start using no code. That is kind of the setup for today. And without further ado, I'll kind of get into it. And hopefully we can get away before 8. Just to keep it short and sweet. Who am I? So I run a online community called 100 Days of No Code, which helps people learn this skill, learn to no code. And then I also run another business called Hive. What is no code? So what do we actually mean by this? Otherwise known as visual development or point and click programming, it really could mean anything. For example, I can write in my notebook without code, I can play tennis without code, I can walk without code. So this is why I love this tweet by Lacey Kessler, who rightly calls out the distinction between saying I can make things without code versus saying I can make something without writing any code. The key word there being writing. So what we mean by no code is a set of tools that essentially give us the power of code without actually having to write it. This means we can build some really cool things visually instead of textually or in written format. And this allows us to make websites and apps, chatbots, databases, automations, and more without writing any code. And admittedly, this sounds a little bit too good to be true, but it really, really isn't. So the picture you're looking at on the screen is Sam, who is part of the 100 Days of No Code community. And this is him feeling like he had superpowers now that he's learned one of these no code tools. But first, I think it's important just to delve into where this whole movement, this whole emerging tech came from and sprung up from. So first, I want to kind of clarify what I mean by, or the distinction I mean between textual and visual communication. So traditionally, in order to communicate with computers or laptops, to get them to do what we want them to do, you'd have to speak the language that machines understand, that being computer code, that being written. But now, thanks to this shiny new world of no code, we can communicate with computers visually and with logic. So this started in the late 90s, as you can see here on the left, with programs like Dreamweaver and Visual Basic that gave us what's called a graphical user interface. Then in the 2000s, software came along that you're probably likely a little bit more familiar with, that being Wix and Squarespace, before today having tools at our disposal like Zapier and Bubble and Webflow, which are powerful no-code builders that let us create cool things and more powerful things. And to reiterate, no code means you're still communicating to computers, but you're just doing it in a different way, in an easier, quicker way. And when we say no code, that doesn't mean there's literally no code involved. In fact, the tools we're using, so some being called Bubble or Zapier, are all built on code. They're built with code. It's just that it's kind of hidden away from us below the surface, if you can see here on the left. So all we see is that bit on the top. But actually, yeah, the code is taken away from our view, our sight. And this is kind of what makes up the pre-built components that you see here on the left that we're able to then drag and drop onto these visual interfaces. To make it a little bit more tangible, we can kind of compare no code to what we're all quite familiar with, that being Lego. So with these tools, you can build things visually just as you would build something from your imagination with Lego blocks. So as mentioned before, these tools all come with these pre-built components that you can drag, drop onto the screen. These being equivalent to your normal Lego blocks. And these would be things like text buttons, maps, input fields, anything that you see on a normal website that's kind of characterizes websites, like a navigation bar. Those are things you can kind of just drag and drop onto the screen. And it is your job as the no-coder, as the person using these tools, to stack them together in a functional and usable way, just like you would with Lego blocks. And this analogy works on a macro scale. So there are loads of different no-code tools, and you kind of have to connect them together sometimes to create one thing. So in this case, someone wanted to build a membership site, and they had to connect these 4 tools together, these 4 Lego blocks. And then we can look at it also from a micro point of view, and see that in each tool, you're also layering up pre-built components or Lego blocks. And then we can also compare this this tech to, or no code, to IKEA. So whenever we buy something from IKEA, whether that's a desk, a wardrobe, or a bathroom fitting, we still have to assemble the pieces to that thing together, which is just like, as mentioned, entering a no-code tool, and you see a list of all these pre-built components on the left-hand side that you can choose from to build the thing that you want to build. And of course, although you're not going to get as much power or customizability as you would have if you were building something from scratch with code, just like IKEA, you're not going to find a more accessible, cost-effective and faster way than using no code. So to kind of zoom in again and understand why we should actually be excited by this, what is there to be excited by? Well, it essentially allows people like you and me, non-technical folk, people that are non-techie, to be able to firstly solve our own problems. So for instance, we can start automating like mundane tasks and building side projects that solve our own problems. And then also we can start solving other people's problems with different side projects or even startups that are all built or can all be built without any code. So let's just make it a little bit more tangible and touch on some of the things that you can or could be making with these no-code tools. As I said, there's a lot of them, and a lot of them do different things. And some of these things you see on the screen are all the different outcomes or things that you can build with these tools. So they range from like e-products, newsletters, to marketplaces, to online communities, to mobile apps that you use on your phone, and as simple as directories. And then we can also kind of look at this internally as well and use no code to kind of optimize or automate all the boring stuff that we have to do on a daily basis. So kind of taking away some of these really mundane tasks from our plate as well. So now that you kind of have an understanding of what it is, and the context and the history behind it, and what you can build with these tools, I want to quickly show you what and how I kind of put together the 100 Days of No Code website and community using, you guessed it, only no code tools. And what the 100 Days of No Code website does, it kind of functions as a few things. First of which is a member portal. So members of the community can access resources after they have logged in. Then there's kind of a knowledge library of different resources. There's an online course in there, so that doubles as a learning management system. And then there's also kind of gated content, so content only specific people with specific subscriptions can actually see. So now I'm just going to dive over to the 100 Days of No Code website for you to get a feel of what I'm actually talking about. So let me just check. Can you see that? My switch of screen at all?
Sorry, Matt, could you repeat what you just said?
Can you see my, I've just switched from my slide. So can you see that new screen?
Yeah, it says partner with us, yeah?
Yes, yeah,
Yeah,
great,
yeah.
perfect. So this site is all built without code, and I'll just go to the home page for you to see. Firstly, this is a landing page. Then also you'll see that I'm kind of logged in as a user. Now, just quickly show you around what it looks like me as the user using it, and then also I'll show you the behind the scenes, how it looks in the no code tool that I've used, to show you kind of how quickly and easy it is to build with these tools. So here, this is kind of our learning area where you can access all these different resources. So if we go into explore, you'll find our no code beginners course. And this is the learning management platform that I was talking about. So we can quickly click on that. So now hopefully you're just getting a feel of like, oh, okay, so I could do this and this with no code. And this is actually one of the easier to use, simpler to use tools. And this is where the learning management system is. Okay, so you've got a kind of a feel of like, okay, so this is what it does, but actually how have I made this? How has this come together? So I'm going to pop into the tool that I'm using to build this, and it's called softer.io. And I'm going to show you kind of just under the bonnet. So you may be wondering, for instance, why I've got 5 different navigation bars or headers. Well, these are the 5 different views or things people see based on what membership or user they are. So this bar here is the one on our homepage for non-logged in users. So if we click on it, we go to this little thing here, only non-logged in users should be able to see that header. But then once someone is actually logged in, they see or should see a different set of things. So this bar is actually should only really be seen by logged in users that also have these products or that have brought these products. So you're kind of now seeing like you can start to change how visible certain content is based on what that user has purchased. Now I'm just going to scroll down and get to showing you an example of how you can quickly build a visualization of your data in one of these no-code tools. So here is an example of one of the blocks you can use. So this is one of the pre-built components that I was saying. You can essentially pop onto the screen, and then if we click on it, we can configure how we want it to look. Now, you may be surprised to hear that this information, so the name of these people and the description and their photos, none of that is actually stored within this app. It's actually coming from a different place. And that's kind of getting to where I was saying how these apps or these tools can be connected to one another, like Lego blocks. So now I'm going to kind of just show you how to create your own in this tool. So let's say we are a coffee shop and we want to display a list of all the coffees on our website. So what you do in this tool, you'd essentially add a block. So this is your Lego block, as I was saying, and what you get is a selection of different blocks. So if we just make our way down to here, we want to add one of these list blocks, and the options are essentially different ways you can visualize the data you have. But what we want is something that's visual, because we want to show the coffees and how they look, and then something that gives us an ability to add some information about those different coffees and the pricing, etc. So maybe we want this one. So let's add that to the page. So we've just pressed add to the page, and you should now see this block here. Now, what we can do is actually turn this into something similar to this, but just with different data. Now, I'm going to quickly hop across to a different tool I'm using, just to show you what or where the information is coming from, and then I'll show you how we connect that to this this page. So I'm using another no-code tool here called Airtable, and this is where all the information I want on the coffees that we sell are based or stored. So for example, in here, we've got the name of the drinks, the price, the type of drink, the type of product that it is it a drink or is it food? And then the image for each one. So if we just click here, you can see the records. And if we just open this up, you can see for that record, for a mocha, the price, it's a drink, and the picture associated with it. Now, we want that information to show up here. Now, how do we do that? So first, what we want to do is actually connect to Airtable. So this is the tool I'm using, and we want to connect to Coffee Shop 1. So let's just find that in here. There we go. So it's kind of seen that base, it's recognized that base, and then we want products, because if you see here, we've got the products table. Great. Now, you're probably still thinking, well, nothing's changed, and it hasn't. And that's why we need to start configuring what these different items or things in this block do or show. So for the image, we want to be showing the image in that database. So image, and now you've got all the products. So why did I click image? Because it's image here. Now you can start to see that you're just mapping this information against the data that you have in that table of the information. So for instance, we want the heading 1 to be the name of the drink or the product. So now that will change. And then we can add the pricing to one of these tags. So if you see tag, what we want is the price. So let's so now we can kind of see how much each of these cost. And that is just pulling information from this column here. Now, hopefully this kind of just gives you a very quick overview of the speed at which you can make cool things in these no-code tools. So let's go back to our presentation, and we can continue on. But hopefully that gives you a little insight into what you can build with no code in a very quick time frame. So now I just want to quickly show you or tell you about some case studies of things that have been made with no code tools, just to give you some more context, because it's still probably quite a strange concept. It's still a bit of a weird thing that we're learning about today. Yeah, I think it's good to contextualize against some really tangible examples. So this is the first one. So someone in the 100 Days community essentially built a directory on using the same tools that we've just used, called Missing Black People. And it took an hour to build, and he went viral on Twitter and has now got 20,000 petitions as a result of this build, to amplify the search for missing Black people. I can quickly actually show you that site now, if of interest. It's missing. Just to show you what it does. So here's the site, and what he's got is essentially listings of all the missing Black people, I think in London, and he's recently made it global. And then you can click on that person and get more information. This is all built without code. So let's go back to the presentation. And then a second example is a mobile app that someone in the community built within 30 minutes that essentially listed out all the resources that people may need in response to COVID-19, and got 400k users within the first 2 months in response to India's COVID crisis they were having in April time. So that kind of gives you, again, a sense of the power and the impact you can have in such a short space of time with these tools. The second product, for-profit product that you can make is a software product that makes recurring income, and this is a dashboard view, and that's all made without code. And then lastly, I like to kind of just touch on some fun examples, some random wacky things that have been made with no code. The first of which is called Elon stocks, and essentially, whenever Elon Musk tweets about a particular stock, you'll get a message if you've signed up with that tweet. Now, people actually paid for this. It was making £500 a month, and all made, again, with no-code tools. And lastly, someone rebuilt the game Civilization in Webflow. Again, another fun use case. So let me just grab some water before I jump into the next section in terms of how you can actually get going, get using and leveraging the power of these tools. But actually, while I'm gulping some water, does anyone have any questions that they'd like to ask on any of the stuff that I've already kind of touched on?
Yeah, feel free to use the raise hand function, or I can unmute you if you do have a question. Thank you, Matt, so far. In terms of what we've learned. Does anyone have any questions?
Can't quite hear you, Temi. Did you say there was a question? Sorry.
Oh, so can you hear me now? Is it better?
Yes. Yeah.
I'm sorry, I think it was the fan. I was saying that thank you for what you said so far. And I was saying to anyone who has any questions, to use the raise hand function.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Sure.
I mean, I've learned. So is it because I've put in the chat the softer.io for people to obviously click on and find out more about the platform. But would you say that the best way to kind of, if you're new to this, is it to join the community that exists, the one obviously that you host? What would be, I mean, like, what's the kind of, I guess we could leave this for after, but we're about to talk about pinpoint your why, but it'd be good to know how to maximize. We've seen the use cases, they look great, but how, as a participant here, how do I maximize like the tools that are available in the community?
Yeah, great question. And yeah, hopefully I'm going to kind of dive into a little bit more like actionable stuff about how you can do that, but on a high level, yeah, it helps to kind of be in a community surrounded by people that are also learning the same tools. So I would certainly join a community, and then hopefully you can kind of take some inspiration from the steps that I kind of outline to have more clarity on like how the hell do I move forward in this space that sounds super exciting but is also completely foreign to me. So yeah, in the next section hopefully I get into that.
All right, thanks.
Awesome. Cool. I'll get stuck into this then. So how do you start getting into this space, into using these tools? So firstly, it sounds super obvious, but I like to kind of use Simon Sinek's Golden Circle framework all around just understanding, like, it's super basic, but like, why do you want to learn these tools? This will really help you determine which tools you focus on and learn, and just your general direction. And it's a good yardstick to measure your growth and your development in the space. So kind of just ask yourself, why do you want to leverage these tools? Is it to build a startup? Is it to build a side project? Is it to just pick up a new skill? Is it to automate some of your life? Or is it to become like a freelancer that leverages these tools for other companies, or something else? Just ponder that thought, because this will help you then pinpoint more clearly what tools you actually use. So coming on to that, so the second step is pick your toolkit. Now, this is very much easier said than done, because as you can see here, there are hundreds of tools in the space. So it can be super overwhelming, and you often feel like a kid in a candy shop that doesn't quite know which sweet to pick because you want them all. But actually, if you have knowledge of, let's say, what project that you want to work on and what you want it to be able to do, then you can probably quickly sort through, actually, okay, so if I'm building a mobile app, you're going to want to use one of these tools. So it's better then to have 12 tools that you can pick from than 100 tools. So now you've instantly like reduced your kind of your surface area of which tools to that you can pick from. And then from here, you can use the community that we have or various other resources to help you pick which one is best. But generally, when I talk about picking the tools, I have some kind of high level advice. So people get very caught up on or carried away with, oh my gosh, I'm starting in this space, I need to pick the right tools to learn and build with. You actually don't. Like, you need to kind of lower the pressure on yourself making that right decision, because you don't need to make, there is no one right decision. There is no path to learn no code. So ultimately, you can pick a tool, you can learn it. If it doesn't work for you, or it doesn't quite fit your use case, you can move on and learn a different one. And the good thing is that if you learn one no-code tool, on the whole, the skills that you learn from that tool and being in that tool, regardless of whether it actually works for you, is transferable to other tools. So for me, like when I started in the space, I started with bubble.io and also Card as two website builders. I realized that they weren't quite for me, so, or at least Bubble wasn't. So then I moved on to this other stack, this other set of tools that help me do what I want to do in a better way. So don't put too much pressure on this decision of, oh my gosh, what tool should I use? Just get started rather than getting paralyzed on which ones to pick. And as I said, you can always change your toolkit. And just some tools will feel a little bit more intuitive than others. So it comes down a little bit to personal preference and how you learn. Some are more visual than others, and that may be a factor in which ones you pick. But if you're still not sure about which ones to move forward with, I always recommend these 5 tools to get started with. So the reason I pick these is because it will give you a really versatile skill set and ability to create different outcomes and things, but also they're all fairly beginner friendly, so you can quickly build up your confidence using these tools, and then you can always later down the line, if you want to, move on to more complex, more powerful tools later on. So what we have here is Glide, which is a mobile app builder, which you can create apps with. We've got Notion, which you can kind of increase your productivity with, and sort of organize your life in a more structured or better way. You've got Softer, as we've touched on, which allows you to create sort of simple websites, but also web apps as well. Then you also have Airtable, which allows you to, as shown, kind of store your data. And then lastly, you have Zapier, which will allow you to do all sorts of automations. So there you have a really versatile stack that you can refer back to and kind of use on your journey whenever. And the beauty of these tools together is that they actually all connect with one another. So you can connect Glide with Notion and Softer with Notion and Zapier with all of them. So they fit quite nicely as a set of Lego blocks, if you will. And again, this is kind of a question that I get a lot, but okay, so you're learning these tools, but actually you want to optimize for creation over consumption. So I always want to give you some kind of projects to move forward with. The first being a directory site. So just like that missing black people's website, it's a directory of people. That would be a good starting point for you to create a directory. You can create a landing page for an idea you have that captures emails. Classic one, I know, but you can create a to-do list app, or a job board for a specific niche. So if you're into one thing and there's lots of jobs for, let's say, gaming or gaming jobs, then you can put up a job board that connects people with jobs in gaming, and also a chatbot. So something that kind of auto generates responses based off what people have messaged into that chatbot. So those are just some ideas to think about or move forward with when you're learning these tools. And then thirdly, kind of the third step is joining a community. So by now you've kind of got the why. So why are you doing this? You've hopefully kind of got a bit of a sense of what tools fit your why and will help you move forward. But now you kind of move to the hard part. It's not too hard, but it is kind of where the work happens, and that is actually learning these tools. How do you use these tools? Some come with a bigger learning curve than others, but there is naturally always a learning curve when you're learning new things. So this is where a community comes in to play. And there's a few reasons why it's useful to be in a community that I'll kind of just quickly touch on. Firstly is just accountability. Learning new skill is tough, so having others to keep you on track is very helpful. Shared knowledge. So it's kind of you're greater than it's cliched, I know, but like you're greater than the sum of your parts. And if you're learning on your own, you're not going to be exposed to all the tips, tricks, resources, and time that other people can give you in a community learning the same skill as you. But also collaboration. So it's interesting that 70% of no coders or people learning to no code intend to use these tools build businesses. So this means that being part of a community, a no-code community, will give you access to people learning the same skill, of course, but also other entrepreneurs or social entrepreneurs like yourselves, which is, of course, great for collaboration opportunities and just trading notes about what you're all building and creating. So this brings me to one of these communities that's conveniently the community that I run, and that is called 100 Days of No Code, which I've mentioned. And essentially, this will connect you with people, content, and a system to build what you want in 100 days, all without, of course, writing any code. So there's 3 parts to this that I'll very briefly touch on. But essentially the system is this. Over 100 days, you will first publicly commit to taking on this new skill, learning it and building something. And through publicly committing, it's kind of hard to back out once you've done that. So that's kind of your bit of your accountability mechanism from the get-go. Secondly, all you're asked to do is at least 30 minutes of learning a day. Now, that is kept super low and minimal to make sure you can fit it around your busy schedule. So although 100 days for something sounds pretty like meaty, pretty scary, actually it's only 30 minutes of learning a day, which in the grand scheme of things is not it's not a lot of time, and certainly something you can carve out to make sure that you're progressing. And then lastly, we get you to kind of share what you're learning with others on the same journey. This way you can get feedback on your projects and kind of build up a knowledge base or a history of what you're learning every day, so you can look back on it and reference it anytime. The second part of what we do is provide like a super beginner friendly education. So workshops, beginner's course, and our learning lab that you saw earlier. So I am super non-techie, and when I got into the space, I found it a bit scary, and that is why it's kind of my mission to make this space a little bit less scary and make it accessible to people like myself that were never great with tech before, but still wanted to create cool things and build my ideas. And then the last piece in this puzzle, as mentioned, is this community that will kind of drive you home. It will push you forward and keep you going throughout the process. And that involves the Slack group that we have where you can connect and interact with others, our masterminds or accountability groups, and our demo days where you get to actually launch your products and ideas in front of the community. So that is it from me on my side. So, please feel free to connect with me on Twitter, at the 100 Days website, or my email, which is there. Just drop me a line if you have any questions, because I really want to kind of help you leverage these tools in this space.